And I'm glad to see that this is the successor, new and improved new life to XForms. We are here at the XForms headquarters with the chair of the community group sitting on top. So please let us hear what you have in store for us.
Thanks. So welcome to our Fore presentation.
Yeah, I'm Juri. You might have seen my talk from last year. And you are?
Joern. I'm not from England or America. I'm German, even if my name applies different. Yeah, my history is I started with XForms in 2001, actually, with Chiba, and a few years later with Betterforms. Yeah, due to some problems that probably don't belong here, we couldn't continue on that. But we're very unhappy about that situation because we couldn't build user interfaces quickly anymore without getting into React or similar, yeah, rather frustrating frameworks from my point of view. And yeah, finally, with the help of the new technologies coming along, there came the opportunity to do it on a complete new perspective, pure client side. And yeah, as the question came up, Fore, why Fore? Merriam-Webster says Fore is something in front of something else. That was my inspiration to create a library that easily allows you to build user interfaces, explicitly not just forms, which we will prove in that tutorial. So you want to add?
Yeah, okay, we have some small difficulties. We don't have a slide, but we are here to show you through some of the very first steps. And I think even more of that, we will start with a hello world, as you would usually. Then do a clock in this and in Fore, of course. And after that, we go into a ToDo App, all these things that you usually would do with a new library. And yeah, I think now that we have an image. Oh, okay, I will. Did you all already download or clone the GitHub repository? Any hands? One hand? Two hands? Yeah, okay, cool.
Great.
I cannot see any raised hands in any Zoom call because I'm not in it. Are there raised hands in the Zoom call as well? Okay.
Great.
Perfect. Okay, and what you then would do is npm-e that you might have already done. This is short for npm install. And that will install it. You will see one high severity vulnerability that is not from Fore, but only a def dependency. And I wasn't able to fix it because it's a breaking change, and we'll likely just create our own component for that. So after that, call npm start. And what you should see now is exactly what we see here on the screen.
Yeah.
And we, I think, start from there.
Right. So we did it as a couple of pages showing live examples, not so much slides. They will go step by step, and you can always peek ahead if you want to see solutions. It might be not that tutorial like that the talks before, but here and there we will mix in some exercises.
Yeah.
Um,
And
bef-
yeah. No?
Before I actually dive in, I want to talk about the actual technical foundations which made Fore possible. So back in the days of better forms, these technologies weren't there, so we had no, there was no option. But nowadays, HTML5 has moved forward and brought us some nice things like custom elements and web components, and also other ingredients, which I'm talking about later. So let's jump in with the first one.
It's already there. What you see is hidden in there is a custom element. And this custom element behaves just like a normal HTML element. You can expand HTML with your own elements, and they will just behave like normal HTML elements in that sense that you can have style them like in the top or script them. So if what you see on the top here, can you see my cursor? So this is actually executing the script below here. So what you see below here is always what you, this is the code that it produces the output here. And if you click on it, you see that the color of the font changes from black to red.
Yeah, that's just to prove that the browser is handling the custom element just like any other element that is built in. That's a new addition which HTML5 brought in.
Yeah, so I had the key facts here. For each slide, you will find those key facts everywhere. So if you have missed it, or if you're watching this a month later, you can always see what you should see on this screen, right?
So actually on this page, we don't have any Fore yet. So, okay, let's move to the next.
Yeah, I am there.
So probably before we go to the example, we should shortly talk about web components. So web components are building on top of custom elements and allow to extend them with behavior. So we can not just define a new element, but we can also attach a customer behavior to that. And that's very foundational for a set of elements, custom elements, extended as web components, which in their entirety make up the behavior of the processor. So when actually Fore is loaded into the page with the usual JavaScript import, then all the elements will be enhanced and their behavior attached.
Yeah. So the hello from Fore that you see on the top is actually in this FX output. What does an FX output do?
Don't remember.
Okay, what I remember is it binds to an element that is in a referenced here in the ref element attribute, right? And so what we see here is actually creating a model on the fly. So you don't have to do this. If you have a very simple setup, you can just write ref greeting, and what it will do, it will create a model in an instance, and in that instance there is a data container and there is a greeting. The greeting in the middle that you can see, I hope you can spot it, where it says hello from Fore, and the FX output is now empty, but it will use the data from the model, right?
Exactly.
Did I forget something? Let's see it, the key facts. I think. Well, there's one thing that I spot there that we didn't talk about. What's the architecture built upon?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we are building heavily on XForms. Because even if it's not the youngest technology, I still think it's a great technology. and many brilliant heads have thought a lot about that. And there's nothing wrong with adapting it again, even in 2022, I guess. And that's why we're starting with this very simple element, which auto-creates a model for you, which is rather the exceptional case. Usually you will really formulate that explicitly, and this is just for the very simple use cases.
For the people who are, as we are, already quite exhausted by the lot of info that we had, but still wants to do something already, is you can now go into your local instance, open an editor, and navigate to the page that we are currently looking at. And you know the page that we are currently looking at when I reveal that. Now you see I'm on hello2 HTML. Can you read that? Or is that too small? It's okay, right? So now we have to locate hello2 HTML. That is here. And modify our data here. Well, we want to modify that one here at the very beginning. And we say hello from Declarative Amsterdam. Save it, and then go back to our website. And what we should see is hello from Declarative Amsterdam now. And this is I think, a good preparation for when we are coming to the real exercise. Okay?
Okay.
Should we continue?
Yeah.
Everybody so far? If you have any questions, you can interrupt us.
Yeah.
Also, if Dan, if you see questions from Slack or Zoom, please. Okay. Let's move on then.
Okay, so we move on to the very first example, and we explicitly used a does not use form controls. Because in my opinion, XForms was a bit unlucky name because actually does a lot more than just forms, and forms imply, yeah, not really very brilliant algorithms or whatever. You think of the form usually as something rather dull sitting there waiting for your import. That's not what XForms and Fore is about. So we are starting with this clock example, showing you that it can do much more. That's why I'm rather sublining Fore with building user interfaces instead of building forms.
Okay. So usually when you do something in Fore, you start with preparing a data model that is for anything more complex than hello world. It's usually what you do, right? And so you add an FX model to your FX4 web component, and in there an instance. How many instances can I have?
Yeah, as many as you need. And they can even of different data types. So you can use JSON, you can use XML, you can quite easily extend it to also support other types like comma-separated values or whatever. Yeah. But we are not yet focusing on that. So XML is certainly the primary data format. So we are trying to support JSON equally. We are not quite there, but it's on the way. Yeah, in Fore, different to XForms, which supports multiple models, it was a pragmatic choice to say, okay, we just have one model at the moment to make implementation faster and easier. But you can have as many instances as you know, and you can define them inline with some restriction or reference them from external sources.
Mm-hmm.
Due to the limitations of HTML, you cannot do inline instances, for instance, with camel case element names, or because HTML does not know about those.
But I think we come to that later. And looking at the time, I think we should continue to be able to show you more. So what we have now is a data, and there's only one data point in it. It's time. Then we set it to 12 p.m. statically, right?
All right. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, so we are adding some UI. Who can spot it?
There is something, yes. There's a template variable. Good. Thanks, Manuel. So yeah, there is a template expression, as you know from many engines. Yeah, in curly braces, if you put something in there, then it's a variable. It references, no, not a variable, but a binding, right?
Yeah,
which
that's a
slightly
value. It's like it's equivalent to output ref time. Yeah, so it's just the same here. You know, it will.
So it's a shortcut.
The same result. It's just a shorter way of writing it. And they can be also used on attributes, for instance. So you can have dynamic CSS class or whatever you like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
that would be good.
Very important point, the expression language for bindings is XPath 3.1. So it gives us quite a lot of power to also have filtering expressions, whatever you can do with XPath 3.1.
And what you also see is that we don't have to reference data. That is the container that is the automatic context. So time references to the time element here.
Yeah, you can always just ignore the data or the wrapping element. You never have to write that.
Questions so far? No. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so next step is we want to have a custom function which calculates the time for us.
And then why? Can you explain this weird? It says type text JavaScript. Why did you?
Yeah, we can have extension functions in different of different types. So we can have JavaScript functions. We can have XPath, XQuery, and even XQuery update functions. So that's quite a powerful feature.
Yeah, and as you see, it's 14, 17, 48, and that output comes from this very line here, the small now call. And what we now want you to do is try and write an XQuery function that just says hello.
And you can choose if you do it in JavaScript or.
Yeah. So first of all, you need to go to the page. We are on page clock 4. Let me see. Clock 4 HTML. And then start typing your very own function.
One word on prefixes or the lack of. So functions don't need a prefix in for, because yeah, I always wanted to make the authoring as simple as possible and leave all prefixing and namespaces away, because they are, yeah, frightening a lot of developers, obviously, which was a bit of a problem in the past with using XML in the browser, and web developers not being very keen on XML, and especially in namespaces. And also they make a lot of noise in the markup, which is not always helpful.
Did anyone manage to get a function? Function, I have no idea where it is. Okay. Okay. So what would you do now is call it here. And then save. I assume since, well, I'm now switching. I want to write XQuery, and then I just say, hello. Is that correct? Let's see. I think so. But if you have chosen the JavaScript way, then does it work? No. Why not? Because JavaScript, unlike XQuery, you need to return a value. Otherwise, there's always undefined return. So, yeah, let's see. Does look good again. And there's also the solutions here, if you want to be sure. So, should we continue, or do you want to play with it? No? Okay, let's continue. That's very good.
Okay, so obviously the static time is not that exciting. So we wanted to update to the current time when we are loading the page. And Fore has a life cycle and dispatches some events during the life cycle. One prominent event is ready. So when the processor has initialized, all models are loaded, all instances are there, then it will finally dispatch a ready event on which you can then start your processing. And in this example, it will set a value with an action, a new concept. So it has a set of actions like set value, which can set a value in some instance in the model. In this case, the set value sets the ref time and calls our function. So it will initially have this value. Forget about this refresh, and the refresh is not necessary for this example here.
No, it's not, but I mean, it's not updating.
No, it's not updating. Yeah.
Yeah. I should it update? What do you think? Yeah, do we want to update it? So what we then need to do is call this action continually. And there's an attribute called while. If you set this to true, then it will do that all the time, right?
Let's have a small addition to that. Maybe about actions as a whole. So there are a set of actions. You can set values, you can insert nodes, you can delete nodes, you can replace them. The action can be looped, they can be conditional, or they can be delayed.
Oh no.
That's all.
Oh no.
What you can do with actions. So
oh no.
Quite
it's blue button time.
Powerful. And you can also group them into blocks, so they optimize their updating behavior. of the UI.
I did. Well, I have to code on it. Oh, I try my very best. We want to continually call this, but there's a certain delay that we want to maybe add. And delays are set in milliseconds, I guess.
Yep.
So yeah, so an exercise would be, can you make this update every second?
By the way, we should have maybe mentioned on the index page, there's also a big button.
Oh, you're
My mic.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh,
Fine.
don't move too fast.
Yeah, let me just show that big button here.
So that goes
It's
to
that one. It's quite big. If I
Yeah.
click on it, I come here, and then now what should I do here?
And now, of course, most interesting is the element reference, where you can find all the attributes a element supports.
Which element should I use? Look at its action. Where's action? Well, I usually use this here. And then go there. So what you find here is a description and things that you can do, things that I don't even know. Usually this is also my go-to. And here you also find the name of the attributes, delay and while. And these two can be used to update the value continually. Together with the fx refresh. This is why it's in there.
Yeah, that's in a minute, maybe.
Yeah. Did anybody manage to get it to update? No? Should I show it or? Okay, let's get there. This is clock 5, I think. And there's some handy stuff in here that I can just copy and paste. And then you see it's doing what it should. The mic is here. I can throw it or
So the while actually,
yeah, just talk.
the while actually
finished.
does an endless loop,
I'm just
delaying
noticing the
each.
brackets in the
each-
while attribute, so it's an XPath expression.
Sorry,
While is true is the XPath
Yeah,
true,
yeah,
not the word
yeah.
true.
exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, the fx set value is setting the time also to now, which is also a function call. Yeah, we didn't manage. Yeah, good question. Thank you.
Well, now it works.
So I think we should continue. Or do you want to do more? There's also another thing that you could do, and that is display a message on event ready. For this, you need the fx message. Fx message, not massage. Here. The fx message will display a message to the user whenever it's evaluated. Could you say that?
Triggered by the
Triggered. Okay. And we want now for you to add a message so that each time the clock moves 1 second forward, it says tick. Which one?
I just followed it. Thanks, Stephen. Stephen, the question is, what is the difference between the fx refresh and the fx update?
Oh, good
When
question.
should I use which
Yeah.
one?
The FX update is actually recalculating, revalidating the model. And the refresh is then applying that new state to the UI. So it always, the processing model, it always follows this chain of recalculate, revalidate, refresh. So the final step will always be the refreshing of the UI.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you need both, right?
Sometimes you need both, yeah.
I would say I'm just showing it now. Yeah, you have it? Oh, great.
I don't. I just said continue.
Mm-hmm. Let me get to my code editor. So what we want to have is an fx message tick. There they go. Okay, let's continue.
So that's just the default of for message. You can also have other message levels, which, for instance, give you a modal dialog instead of this toast message. So
Okay,
it's just the default.
what we have, oh, this already looks quite advanced.
Yeah, we added some CSS. Simply, I don't think it makes sense to go into that in detail. It's just standard CSS. And just to look at it, make it look a bit more attractive.
But what we also see is that our data has significantly developed. Now we have to display all these different things. We also have a time, the hour, the minute, the second, and also degrees in there to calculate, to pre-calculate those values, to also show that you can calculate values. And yeah, it's still not looking as the one that we saw earlier, right?
No, we are not there.
Yeah. And
but yeah, we
you want to say
wanted
something?
to bring your attention to this bind elements, which also live in the model and allow you to do some calculations on the ref nodes. And besides that, they can also validate, set constraints, set something like required or read-only constraints to model items.
Okay, let's see what happens if we uncomment these lines here. What you can do also, if you want yourself to see that I'm not lying. Oh, interesting. So what happens if I comment those in? Do I need to do something here as well? Can't remember. SDEC, it's not MinDEC. Do we have this here? No. Okay, let's see what happens. Aha. Not really something. Okay. So now I have MinDEC. So let's use this one here. Aha.
That's the further.
Yeah.
What you will notice are here the template expressions are used on the style attribute as part of the style attributes, which allows us then to rotate the pointers.
Oh, let me show this. Where do you see it? This style attribute.
Here. Stop.
This one here.
Yeah, this or here or here.
Yeah. Oh, so these are used to show the position of the Zeiger. What is Zeiger?
Yeah.
Pointer, counter, pointer.
Hand. Right, that's weird.
I didn't know that.
Does this work on each browser, correct?
Yeah, it should. So actually our development is limited, so we don't have a department for that, but it's tested on the latest browsers and should work. And we are very close to the platform. We are not using any specialties or special frameworks or whatever. It's just as plain JavaScript and HTML as possible.
Mhm.
So no foreign imports, which could cause trouble.
It has one dependency, right?
As one, we will let.
Okay.
Oh,
Any questions so far? No? Okay, then let's move on. I think the next one is already the ToDo app. Oh. So we're good in time.
yeah, it's a little to-do app which will actually allow to create and delete to-dos, auto-loading them and saving them, conditionally display completed to-dos, and use the set focus action to set the focus to some control. So that's the final product of how it will look like. So where we are heading.
Let's jump right in.
Yeah, it starts again with the model. Still have some microphone problem here. We have put up some sample data, just something to see at.
Yeah, there is a task, or there's a list of tasks. Each has a completed attribute, which is currently both our tasks aren't completed, and they have a due date, which is just a string, which is then, yeah, which represents a date, and then a description, right? Yeah. There's something about XML in quotes there below there. Maybe you want to. You already pointed on that. We had that earlier, that it's not real XML if you have it inline. If you want to have real inline XML, you have to load data from external resources.
Right.
Yeah.
The instance supports the source attribute where you can actually load in a real XML document, fully namespaced, and whatever you need. Yeah, inline HTML is limited by the standard, so it can be only lowercase, not case sensitive. But for simple use cases, it's fine enough. Yeah.
Yeah, let's move on.
So the next.
Now we have something really new.
Yeah.
A repeat.
So that's one of the powerful features XForms defined. And we, of course, have also implemented that with a little difference. You have to put in a template as child of the repeat. Because, yeah, the template element is defined by the HTML standard. And, make sure that the browser will not touch that. It will just consider it as inactive content and will do nothing with it unless it's instantiated and put into the DOM. And that's what the repeat will do. It will look for the amount of occurrences of the reference task here. And then for every occurrence, in our case 2, it will template out these block.
So why is there a template in there?
I just explained it.
Because it's inert content and the browser doesn't touch it. Did you say that and I missed it? Sorry. Okay. And also why we can also reference just at complete here as a reference?
No, that's the next point. So bindings, refs are scoped. So they always resolve upwards. So the add complete looks upward in the tree, finding next ref task, and then this will make up the whole path. So it will be ref/add complete. So you don't have to repeat yourself all the time. And end up with such paths.
Joern, I think we are good enough in time so that we can slightly explain FX control because it's new here.
Yeah, that's right. FX control. So in former times, we actually implemented sets of controls as it's common with frameworks, UI frameworks, and they do all these control and that control. And I didn't want to do that just because, yeah, you are ending up with a lot of dependencies usually. And some people like paper controls, some people like this and that controls, and you will never have the right one in the end that everybody likes. And Fore takes a different approach here. So control is kind of, what was that?
I don't know.
Not an abstract control, but it's wrapping a real control. In our case, we just use standard HTML input control, and it's wrapped up in FX control. And you have two additional attributes, value prop and update event, which allow to wire your control with FX control. So value prop is the property that gets updated from this control. So if you're using a checkbox, that will be the check property, and the value of that will then be propagated to the model. So once the user clicks on that, it will take the checked property and propagate that to the model. Similarly, we have the update event. So different controls have different events when they are fire the state change. And especially if you're probably using a third-party component, that won't be, you cannot foresee how that will be named. So you can just specify it. However, they will default always to the sensible defaults like value. So that's every HTML control has a value property. And if value prop is not given, it will be value. You always have to only specify it if you want it to be different. Same as with update event, which will default to blur. So if you don't specify anything, it will update on blur.
Mm-hmm. I can already click here, but I will not see any difference. To see the difference, I need to go and open the inspector. And then see that complete, where do I see it? It's somewhere as a class set, complete true here. And if I uncheck it, then you see that it changes from
True false.
true false. But also there's, yeah, okay, I saw something different there. And
so it makes it easy to have a style rule with complete dot true, complete dot false.
yeah, it is
Match that.
added here. There's a question.
Juri, you were just showing the instance from the inspector, but I can't read in the black screen. So can you explain where in how you get to the current values in the browser?
What I actually just showed you was not the instance, but the actual controls.
Okay.
But you also can see the instance.
Yeah, we see. Do we have that in the?
We don't have that.
Okay, let's.
I could add it.
Add it, please.
Yeah. Can you tell me how? Well, I
just add FX inspector to the end of Fore.
Yeah, FX inspector here,
End
this
of
one.
block or somewhere. It's actually does not. mix.
And I need to go into the model.
No.
This is clock. We are at not at clock anymore, but to do which one? To do 3. This is to do 3 and
go to the end.
to the end.
And right before the for element, I usually put it, but it doesn't
Right
make
before
sense.
the for element.
Yeah, it must be inside of for.
Inside of 4. Okay. Here.
Yep.
Oh, it's. You can do that yourself as well, just to see what happens. It will not break anything, I promise. Okay, I saved it. So now I don't see anything. Ah, what is
It's
this
there.
here?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And there you can actually. So the reason for that, why do we need that? Why don't we can just inspect it? The reason is that the instance is not part of the page DOM. It's always separate. It's living separate. The reason is simple. Yeah, we cannot have a XML document inside of an HTML document. Yeah, that's not possible. And so they live outside as separate instances, so you cannot go there by simply inspecting that. You won't see anything. So that's why we have this additional tool, which is very handy when you are developing and want to see what the state of your instance is.
Has anybody here added an inspector to their document? Okay. Yeah, I see 2 hands. Cool. I would say if there's no questions, let's move on.
Next one is not so. Just, yeah, again, we just add some CSS to make it a bit more pleasant to look at.
Yeah, if I'm now clicking on something that is as done, then all of a sudden it looks very nice and it has transition or dates are looking pretty. Yeah. Okay, nothing more to show here. Let's go on.
Yeah. So of course, when we ever do app, we want to add something and create a new to do. And there's the insert action to do that.
Let me just show that. First, in action, I can add now new to-dos here. And the action itself is here. No, that just triggers the action, right?
That's a trigger with the insert. So trigger is similar to affix control. It's a kind of abstract trigger. So you can put in a button or you can put in a link or an image for the actual triggering of the action. And then you can just put your actions as children, which will then be fired.
Mm-hmm.
And this insert will just insert a new task and use another ref, which points to the snippet we want to insert. So consider the problem, okay, when the list is empty, what should we insert? We have no clue. So we need something like origin to say, okay, take this as a template and insert it into that location of the ref.
And with the instance function, you can tell it, okay, I have an instance helper somewhere, which is here. And in there is the task that I want to add, which is a blueprint for. And if we would now go into and open our inspector, then you would see there's no four tasks instead of 2, because those empty ones were added. And I also can, of course, add something here. Say hi, maybe better. So it's a to-do. And yeah, but I want to get rid of that one. that is empty. I don't have any content for that.
Yeah, so we have to move on. Adding is nice, deleting would be also good.
Mhm.
And yeah, similar as insert, you can guess it, there's a delete. Just reffing what you want to delete, so quite simple. And the one thing you may note is the dot expression, which refers to the current node. When we look upwards, that's task. So it will just delete the current task in that repeating section.
Exactly. The dot references the task, and therefore I can even remove existing ones now.
So that's just plain XPath.
Mhm.
So now we come to the more
Advanced
interesting
stuff.
part, advanced
Yeah.
parts, yeah. Would be good to also be able to save that. We wanted to avoid to make a complicated setup with separate server and blah blah, and putting it into database. So we just want to store that into local storage of the browser for the purpose of this tutorial. So submissions are a very powerful feature of XForms and Fore, which allow you to load and save data. And they also fire life cycle events like submit, which will fire immediately before a submission is taking place, submit done for a successful submission, and submit error if something went wrong. So you can react on that, outputting a message to the user or whatever, yeah, or maybe triggering an alternative path of execution.
Okay. So I see there's this new element, fx submission, and has an ID which it doesn't really need, I guess, does it? But also a URL, and this points to local store.
Yeah, that's a built-in feature which we just added to Fore, that it understands this local store scheme, and that will just store things to local storage of the browser. So that's just a convenience.
What does this to-dos behind there?
That's a key where it's so actually when you open the inspector of the browser and look at application in Chrome, at least it's called application, there are all local storage data will be listed, and you will find this key to-dos and the serialized XML data in there.
So if I'm now adding something, oh, changes have been stored. Interesting. And if I'm now adding here something, need to present. And then go up. Now the changes have been stored again. And I need to change this to today as well. Yeah, perfect. It was saved again. How? Okay, if I now reload the page, then it's gone. I thought it was saved. Where is it? We have to load it, right? So this is your exercise now to load that.
So you will need a submission of, obviously.
Yeah. Here, this one. And can you give us any hints how to do that? Do I have to say load or something?
You know, yeah, it's an exercise.
Yeah, but please.
Look at so you can look in the documentation what
Okay.
submission supports, and to give a hint, of course, if you want to read something, it's rather a get method. So
okay, I see.
should be maybe a submission method get.
Mm-hmm.
And then you want that the data are replacing your current instance.
Well, let's get that first part. Let me do that. We are in ToDo. Where are we? ToDo 7. So I'm opening ToDo 7 HTML, and then here, the submission, I'm copying it just, and then give it an ID, load. Why not? And you said method get. Okay.
So what now?
Yeah, I don't know. First, changes have been loaded. I can do that. That's easy. And then, is it the same event? Submit done.
Yep.
Okay. Now what? Any ideas? I think, is there something like fx replace or something? Or insert? Let's try insert. Add position origin. Well, I don't know. I need another hint.
So, okay, I said you want to that the data we are getting back from the GET request will be loaded into our instance, right? So we need a way to say that, and that's replace attribute on submission.
Replace attribute?
Replace attribute.
Okay. So I should have looked at fx submission replace. I did not spot that one. Is there a replace? Yes, here. Okay. One of all instance target redirect on none. Okay. I think instance is the right one.
Good guy.
Sometimes I even get paid for this. Replace instance. Is it a function or is it just a word, keyword?
Just the ID. No, replace instance.
It's a function call.
No, it's not a function. It's just a string. Replace instance is a fixed.
It's the keyword.
String. Yeah.
So this
keyword.
will work. Have a look. Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
Yeah, by default, it's a default instance. So it's always first in document order.
So this should work.
That's the principle we follow everywhere. So to sensibly default things, so not annoying developers with unnecessary statements. So unless you wanted to replace another instance, you would just say instance equals and then give the ID of that instance.
So this is missing here for me. Replace instance equals?
No, that's fine. Replace instance is just a keyword.
It doesn't load.
If I do want to make a model.
Yeah.
Do we have something in really stored?
I thought so, yes. I had something here. Test.
Yeah, the tricky thing here is that the problem.
No?
I thought probably some of you would bring it up, but as all these following pages are using local storage with the same key, they actually share this instance between the pages. So if you modify it on the one page to the next, the data will be the same, which is, by the way, a nice feature if you want to share data between tabs of your browsers or pages. Yeah, they will just, the data will be stay in local storage, and you can just fetch them up from there. But of course, that can also create some logical hiccups if you don't be careful.
Now that you're talking about local stores, there's a question in the chat. Are schemes like local store documented anywhere? Or is it only local store?
Good question. There might be gaps always in the documentation. I try to be complete, but features are sometimes evolving quicker than documentation. But if that's not the case, it should be, yes.
We have another question here from Günther.
What I do not get is how is the loading triggered?
It's a submission, and
Good question.
maybe that's the problem here. Does it work
Yeah.
for you?
No,
No. So I
because
haven't.
there has to be some kind of event that triggers loading. So when
Exactly. So what is missing here is the send action. So we need a send action
Thank
to
you.
actually send it along, to trigger it. So submission in itself is not an action. So it needs an action to fire up that submission. And it does so by just giving the ID as a submission attribute.
So here I'm in the code now.
So you need what we probably want here is to send the submission on model construct done, which is another lifecycle event. So if the model is completely up, then it will fire that event, and that's a convenient place to do some model initialization, like loading of data.
Model construct done.
Model construct done.
Model. Is it one word?
Or minus, always minus. Construct minus done.
Okay, and then load.
You could just have fx send directly instead of action.
fx send,
fx send is the action, yeah.
and then
And then submission. So you have to say which submission you want to fire. Will cause an error if that ID is not present.
okay, let's see. Oh, there it is, my test.
Finally.
Yeah, let's
Active learning.
maybe give you a second to have also this eureka moment. Yes.
Yeah, I just read documentation, and there is a SRC attribute on fx instance, which in documentation says can be used for loading data. So I tried adding this attribute to fx instance, and as you are using this local store to do, but it just break everything. It display nothing. Is there any break? It looks much easier than this.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Only submission knows about this local storage scheme. That's probably not super consistent, but yeah, it was just a quick invention of mine to get the tutorial running.
But I like
But
the
it's a good
idea.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could actually have it on instance quite easily also. So,
Yeah, but with normal XML file, it will be working.
sorry?
But if there will be normal XML file reference, it should be working.
It should be working for any URL path that's resolving with a get. Usually it's used for loading static XML or JSON files.
Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Here we have it in working, and as you see, my test got carried over, so it uses the same local storage key, and I will now have to remove that for the next slide to work. Is there anything you want to point out here while I'm here we have the model construct done again. And load submission reads data. Yeah, this is only what we already did and glossed over. So let me just quickly remove that here.
Yeah.
It's in storage. Okay, local storage.
You are in
The to-dos key. Okay.
yeah, and there you see it's the serialized data on the, stored in your browser.
It's just all the tasks. If I would modify them here and then reload, then we would see if I would set this here to true and then tab out and reload, then the first one should be now. Yeah. It
is
completed now, but I removed all of them. Oh, they're still there, but I think this is because of the static data that we have here in the model, which we don't technically need now anymore.
Yeah.
But let's move on.
So yeah, and the final step, we want to hide already completed items and use a bind to actually hide those from view. So this is another feature of the bind. We can say, okay, something is relevant if some condition. Can you scroll down that maybe?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, it's there. So we have the bind, the ref task, and we have an XPath condition saying under which condition that relevant becomes true or false. What does it mean relevant is true or false? It means that for the user, non-relevant items will not be displayed. And also they can be filtered out when you are then submitting those data, though you have flags and options to also modify that. So you can say filter all non-relevant, or you can keep all nodes. You can empty non-relevant nodes from their values. So there are different ways of filtering that out. But mostly it's used to hide away stuff from the user. So consider a wizard where you ask for your vehicle and you have your, say, bicycle. Then probably there's a question about engine will not be displayed. So it's just for cars.
And this is now also there's this add complete false. And I see now here in our data model, there's now a show completed false. How, if I'm now changing this value to true, this will still be relevant, right? Because this is then true. This is false. It's, oh, the show completed is true, but it's currently false. So here I have this input that will then trigger show completed to be true, which we can't see here, only in the inspector. If you insert the inspector, you would see. I don't know. Would you like to see it? No. Okay. You believe me? That's good. Yeah. So that way you can still trigger non-relevant nodes to be displayed because we control the relevancy. Yeah. There's also one thing that is not really shown here. It's that now this one is required. And
it's by the style. Yeah. Okay. This is just an arbitrary style decision to make it is light red. And also the star is added to the control to indicate that it's a quiet field. That's a choice of user interface designer, how that should be displayed.
Yeah, but what does it mean when I'm not setting a required field?
Yeah, of course, if your submission, the submission is by default validating data before it sends it along. If that's not, if there are fields not being filled in that are defined as required, the submission will fail. So it will dispatch submit error.
Okay, I think, is there questions? No, okay, let's move on.
Okay, what's that?
I think what we have here is that you have two computed things.
Yeah.
At the top here, those two lines were added now, showing you the results.
Yeah, so that's just informative messages. We also did with template expressions.
You want to see them? They are here.
Yeah, yeah. So class
Here.
info, class info.
So what we can do,
So
we could now have a small little exercise. I think we have enough time. I'm not sure. Look at that. We have 20 minutes.
No, we can cover more.
What do you would you like to make a small little challenge here at this point? Anyone? Okay. Make that you have completed tasks disappear when there are no completed tasks. There are hints in this how you would achieve this. So what I want to see is, now that I have 0 completed tasks, I don't want to see this. And in the document that is ToDo 11, there are hints how to achieve that. And the hints are here.
And the solution is here.
Well, there is a small little things you have to do, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to. You have to count. Another hint.
Yeah.
I think we should move on. Did anybody manage to do it? I see no hands. I'm a little sad. Should I show how to do it? Yes? Okay. This is ToDo 11. So here we already see here an expression that uses if. I'm just copying that. And then I will modify that by task complete count. Well, that's already what we need. Then you have completed tasks, otherwise, else, nothing. Let's see if that works. Nope, did not. Count.
Where did you want to put it?
Ah, true. That's the one. Nope. If count instance task complete true equals greater than. Logic is hard. Greater than. Nope. I don't know. Maybe I should have a correct.
Yeah, there's a tickle too much.
I don't know.
Oh.
Because the URL says to do 10 and the file is to do 11.
Ah, thank you. That's a bad one.
Might explain it.
Okay, now I see something different.
It's not yet working.
Yeah, it's okay. I just have to do that.
Yeah, if you
concatenate inside.
That's a common case if you see that value template expression not being evaluated and just what you've written, that's a good indication that a expression is not correct. So just fail.
Yes. Okay. So that's what we wanted to achieve here.
I have a question. It seems to be the third to-do item is counted, because, but it is not a valid task. It's empty.
Correct.
It's part of the model, I think, but it's not valid.
Yes.
Can you prevent it to be part of the model?
I don't get it. So
This task, because it doesn't have a description, is invalid, but it's still there.
yeah. And yeah, validness is usually something you want to know about when you're submitting something, right? Yeah, there must be always the opportunity for the user to do something wrong before you can block it.
Yeah, but when you save this data, you have invalid data in your database.
That might be because I was saving this before it was
Yes.
required, but but I understand what you mean. It should
yeah,
not
okay.
even be to
No,
the saved to the local storage, right?
Yeah.
That's what you worry about. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
do I have to prevent this by hand, or is it built in?
No, you don't have to prevent it by hand. The submission should block that unless you have set validation false on it, which is very important sometimes. Sometimes you don't want validation to happen, especially if you are loading dynamic data like lists and stuff. You don't want to bother the model with validating. You just want to load something, and then you can just ignore it. Or sometimes you have maybe a big set of metadata and users don't manage to do that in one step. Yeah. So they are doing halfways, and then they want to have a kind of temporary save or something like that. And then you need this validation false feature. But usually it should be blocked.
I will go on.
Yep.
Now we come to the really interesting stuff. If
Yes.
that was not enough.
There's one last thing
Oh.
about this local storage thingy.
Ah, I broke it here. Sorry. Let me
So that's more a mention.
Yeah.
Because yeah, of course you don't want that the user, you save data in the user's browser, then you should probably give him or her a chance to also delete that data again without going to inspector. Maybe that user doesn't know about this feature. So there's also an additional consume method. So you can say submission method consume, which will pull the data out of local storage and immediately delete them from there. So you can actually reset the to-do list to the defaults or to empty. Yeah,
okay. Now if I click clear your data, but nothing happened. This is just because it's now consumed. It's read, but
yeah, if you now reload, then it's gone.
okay. You're not all done yet. We have something more, and we have still 8 minutes. And I think this would be good to use for using web components as controls.
Yeah, very quickly. So we talked about FX control before, and now here's an example where we using
You're breaking up. Yeah. Test.
1, 2, 1,
Yeah.
2, a foreign web component to be used as control. And we have a web component built in-house, which is called Jinntec Code Mirror, which is just wrapping the well-known code mirror editor in a web component. And this way we can wire up this code mirror instance as a control in Fore, which essentially allows us to have a certain node in our XML to be edited in code mirror. For that to happen, we needed to make a small extension to FX control. So it has an additional feature now, this little as attribute, as node allows to pass in the data value of that node. So pass on the whole node to that control. Usually it will be just a string value, but there's the option to pass in a whole node. And if you update that Jinntec Code Mirror component, putting something else in there, it will just reflect in the model. So this is an example where non-native HTML controls are used. And it can be a whole range of different things. It doesn't even need to be a web component, it can be also third-party jQuery, whatever thingy. Yeah. And of course, it keeps the library thin, as we are not forced to have this never complete set of widgets everybody wants.
Yeah, and as you can see, it's actually really just one line of code to add this kind of functionality to that. What's this log default there? I'm asking myself.
Which?
This log function there.
Yeah, the log function is just that was the predecessor of the code inspector. You can also write that to log out a specific instance in that place. So that's the poor man's data inspector.
We have one more.
Another one thing I want to mention is this class widget.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of important because control might contain several actions, a label, whatever. So how should it know which the actual control is? So we just put up a class widget. So FX control knows which actually is the element it wants to be as a control.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that any HTML element has the class attribute, so you can really apply it to anything. Definitely. Can we show the next one?
Yeah, that's one aspect. So again, we have defaulting here. If you are using HTML input, which is of course very diverse, we don't have to put that widget on it, because it will first look, okay, do I have native controls here? So the author is not required to write that. If it's a non-standard control, then we have to put that class on.
Mm-hmm. So we have only 4 minutes left.
Yeah. So we now very quickly the last one.
Yeah.
Or first but last. And here we have a example of the wonderful XQuery update facility. So maybe you can just change value of the upper. Can you do that?
Yeah, I can, but to what? Which one?
Yeah, there, just type there.
The first ref or the second ref?
Yeah, this one.
Okay.
It's fine. So, and you are seeing that it also modifies the second. So both are actually instances of Jinntec Code Mirror, and they are linking. So the second one is just calling a function, an XQuery update function, and feeds that into the second control.
Here's the function.
Right. So that's a very slim function which yeah, looks for the main refs and replaces with the reference elements as we've seen before in the demo.
Yeah, I think this is the last chance to say thank you.
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. You have more?
I wanted to have a chance to say thank you,
Yeah.
especially to the XForms 2. And Form authors, also the authors of Web Components and the HTML5 spec, and last but not least, Martin Middle and here, who is a main implementer of the wonderful fontoXPath library and open source 3.1 implementation. Without that, Fore would never have been possible. So with all these giant shoulders, I would call it, Fore wouldn't have happened. So big thanks to all of those. So that's it.
Yeah.
I have a question. Well, actually, I have two questions, a sort of high level one and a lower level one. So the high level one is, what would you say is the main functional difference between what you've presented and what XForms can do? Or what Fore can do and what XForms can do? Because I mean, there's clearly lots of overlap.
It's, yeah. First of all, one difference is Fore is pure HTML. So everything is HTML in there. And that was important to me because I thought that XForms had the problem that it was a bit too complicated for many people. So the ramp up was very hard. And I thought using HTML5 standard web components, etc., would make it easier for people to get in. Also to give an alternative to all this nowadays overwhelming web development world, where it's very hard to build user interfaces, decent user interfaces. You need a study of years to get all this tooling, all these concepts and stuff. Yeah.
And my second question then, related actually to your answer, it looks very similar to what XSLT forms have done for XForms, namely, they just transform into HTML5 elements, looking very much like what you've done. And isn't that an approach? Or shouldn't you be working with XSLT forms more?
Yeah. That's not so much a technical issue, but maybe also, of course, we want to control it ourselves. That's not no disrespect to Alan, but he's just one man. He has no big capacity to drive it forward. As I felt, it stalled for quite a while. Certainly, he has other work to do. And we also wanted to, we were in the process of replacing current solutions from customers we had using better form. And we were kind of, feeling guilty dropping better form. And we needed to go for a replacement. Of course, we could have used XML forms. I just see it as a healthy competition.
So the first part of my question was, couldn't you just do that, transforming XForms into your elements in the same way?
We are not really transforming.
Yeah.
There's no transform. It's just the web component that is bringing that. And that's another advantage, I think. We had problems that by transforming stuff, the user gets some different output than what he's writing. so the markup changes, and that poses some problems with styling, for instance. And so you don't always get out what you put in. And this asymmetry causes some problems in the past. Also, Betterform had the same problem. We had quite a similar server-side approach than XSLT forms. But yeah, maintaining all these XSLT transforms was also not too big fun.
I'd like to second that. I've done a bit of CSS work on XSLT forms, and getting through the div soup is very much problems. And I think your approach is gives a very clear HTML structure that's easy to style. So I would say that's a very big plus. Using native HTML controls is a very big plus. Using full XPath 3.1 is a very big plus. So I think I'd be eager to start trying on Fore personally. So I think if there are no further questions, we should wrap up for a small break and get back here. Should we get back 10 before 4 or just 2 before 4? 5 before 4.
And we are sticking around
after 4. Thank you very much, and see you later.
Thanks for having us.